All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with Morning Express. In case you're just joining us, welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jesse Rogers, and we're here to take a look at the latest news-making headlines. As usual, as it is tradition, we start with the press review, some of the major stories covered in today's dailies. And with me, I have Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard and the Daily Nation, just taking a look at some of the major stories, amongst which revolve around the security detail around Deputy President William Ruto. Some of what was mentioned yesterday during that committee, grilling top security officials, even as the Deputy President shortly after reacted, mentioning that only 70% of what was mentioned is actually owned by him. And what started out as a security analysis of sorts revolved to a lifestyle audit. We'll definitely highlight some of these major stories. And with me in studio, we've had Joseph Kioko, political analyst, just taking a look at some of the nitty-gritty details that stood out. Also via way of Zoom, we've just been joined by Moses Oburu, who's a political and governance expert. Gentlemen, let's continue with the show. Just to finalize your point, Kioko, perhaps on this whole security matter, what really stands out for you? Apart from the politics, apart from the noise that has come out thereafter, in terms of the security of the Deputy President, should there be any more concerns right now, looking at the numbers assigned to him, 74, especially from the presidential escort?
I think, one, the framers and the spirit of the 2010 Constitution, in which we all operating at, was created with the view of embedding the institution of the office of the Deputy President. Remember, we had, in the period of 2002, President Moi had just gotten elected in 1997, and there was 18 months that the country stayed without a vice president. So it was appointed on a roadside declaration in Limuru. Yeah. And people were aware of the constitutional challenges that happen when you have a whimsical president or a dictator as a president, and therefore expose the country to the fragility of just in case anything happens. So people created and embedded that this is the office of the Deputy President elected by Kenyans. So if you remove the person of DP Ruto and the wrangles between Uhuru and Ruto, it is important to respect that office. And because he's the president in waiting, just in case anything happens, he should be accorded the necessary security arrangement. In terms of the finer details, I think in an effort to show that there is adequate security without going into principles, a lot of sensitive information was leaked out. Now we know he's guarded by 74 REC officers. Now we know there are 121 APs that guard him. Now we know the drivers in the convoys of the DP are prison officers. So it goes down. It really goes down that in an effort to spite Ruto, they leaked out certain sensitive information that should not have been leaked out. I don't think that is fair, because that conversation is not happening to the person of Raila Odinga. That conversation is not happening to the person of former President Moi or former President Kibaki. One, because it is irrelevant and it shouldn't be placed on the table. So, yes, we want to teach Ruto our political lessons, but this is not the way to go about it. Secondly, is to discuss the overall security situation in the country. Okay. That you cannot have one individual enjoying 3,000 askaris, or one individual enjoying 278 askaris, or one individual enjoying 100 officers at the expense of Kenyans who lack adequate security at their ordinary places of work, at their ordinary residences. So that you find in Dandora, in Uruma, in Chuda, insecurity in Nukia, insecurity is high because there are not enough police officers, or the police officers that are there are not being paid well, and the morale is low. So we need to strike a balance. I would have urged the Parliamentary Select Committee that's at there, after listening to this conversation, not to let this matter lie, but to pick it up and now start engaging in how to bolster. How do we rationalize these numbers without getting into the nitty-gritty of it? How do you rationalize these numbers? Earlier, I'd said that we need to have a conversation of what parameters need to be defined. Today, if you look at the US, and people have cited this,
All right.
when Donald Trump retreats from White House to his private residency, he pays for those costs of the security guarding him there. I mean, that has been made public without going into the numbers. So once we define the official residency of the DP and two or three more residences, and then the rest, let them be treated as commercial centers.
Okay.
Just like banks, let them hire security, let them pay the security, let them supplement national police and private guards, something that is near normal or should be normalized at this particular case, so that we are able to afford those who need security, the security they need, and also ensure we have adequate numbers to guard as many Kenyans as possible. That is an opportunity, I think, that has been lost in this hullabaloo about DP Rutos and the numbers that are being thrown about here and there.
Okay, well noted. Even as it's proper to note that the House team backed the proposals by the CES to sort of limit the number eligible the number of security officers eligible to VIPs, because according to him, the current situation is not moral. Let's listen in from Moses Oburu right now. And Oburu, thanks for making time. Let's begin on this particular point. Did Matiang'i politicize national security using parliamentary privilege? From where you sit, is this a fact?
Let me begin from the outset by saying that since the advent of the Jubilee government in 2013, we saw dramatization of security. And what do I mean by dramatization of security? You know, previously we had President Moi and then President Kibaki before Uhuru and Ruto took over. And we saw how security, according to the VIP, was transacted. It was not in the manner in which it started in 2013, because all of a sudden, every minister had a siren car, had a chase car, and more than 4 or 5 bodyguards. This is wrong. This is morally wrong in a country where we know there's serious shortage of security personnel to provide security to all citizens. So I wish to say that what Matiang'i did is politics. And this politics plays into the succession matrix. We know the games, the underlying tones, politically what the DP what the DP and his boss are doing. You know, there's a tug of war between them. Their marriage of convenience ended some time back, and it is time now to move on. So in a bid to move on, each and every opportunity to dramatize and to show the DP in bad light is taken. So it is again this backdrop that Matiang'i did what he did, and I'm sure, as my friend Kyoko said, he is under certain instructions. Whether this is good is a question for debate, because a DP is a DP. He's a second in command and is the heir apparent. If anything should happen to the president, God forbid, William Ruto becomes the automatic constitutional president of the Republic of Kenya. And therefore his security remains sacrosanct in spite of political differences. So on matter of security, let us try to be civil and make sure that the country is, we are an example, because Kenya as it is an example in the region. So we cannot afford to be doing such dramas with the security of the second in command. So let us do politics, yes, but let us keep security out of this. Secondly, because I said it is politics, this also enables Kenyans to know certain things that were maybe privileged information. We now know, to this extent that Deputy President has admitted that 70% of what was displayed in Parliament is true as to his ownership, as to status of his ownership. So the question will now be, between 2013 and now, how much of this property is new, and how was it acquired? And if this was acquired, the manner in which it was acquired, how much is it How much has it contributed to the narrative of corruption? So these are all questions that will form discussions and debates from now moving forward. So, but the bottom line is that the deputy president's security is sacrosanct and must be handled as such. The numbers is also exaggerated, because why would one be accorded so much guards? I mean, so much well trained, because to train one Reke, to train one of these specialized forces takes so much of our national money.
Okay.
So to now isolate this and give them to one person is also a moral question. I mean, where does that leave the ordinary citizen?
And those are proper questions you're raising, Oburu. Allow me to ask you this. Should we envision an expansion of this quote-unquote lifestyle audit to other leaders? Because the DP, time and time again, and his wealth has been a source of fodder, not just within the political circles, but the media as well has also played to this sort of narrative. What's your take on expanding this lifestyle audit, not just on the deputy president, but other leaders as well, Oburu?
Yes, it is. I would say that morally, we need to subject this audit to every other leader in the current dispensation, because we agree that you cannot run a nation on the basis of what happened in the past. So if there was oversupply of the security personnel to guard our VIPs, then we should have moved from that into the realities of the day, that we apportion security to VIPs, measuring it with their levels of threat. I mean, the threat to their lives. You know, if someone, for example, is going to an area perceived to be dangerous, you know, the areas in this country that are marked red in terms of security operations.
Okay.
So when on case by case, if a minister is going to such an area, they say a bandit-prone area, then his security will be up. So we need to be.
Okay, we'll definitely get Oburu back on the line as a political and governance expert. But I think his point is definitely across. As we finalize on this matter, perhaps, Kioko, should we extend this in terms of a lifestyle audit?
It is fair.
Yeah.
It is fair to extend it. I think when the president first mentioned of the lifestyle audit, he was in Mombasa, in the company of Joho and staff. And that was just immediately after the handshake, late 2018. And nobody knows what happens. Nobody knows. The public declaration of wealth document started with the Kibaki administration. And when the Uhuru administration came in, somehow those forms, that process dwindled down, and it has fizzled out to a point where when people talk about lifestyle audit, it's only targeted to one individual route. And that's the unfairness and the parochialness in this approach in terms of the fight against corruption. And we keep losing it, I think. When all is said and done, we slowly by slowly, President Uhuru pushes us to a point where we are lacking the moral argument to have this conversation. It does not hurt for the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to subject himself to a lifestyle audit, because by and large is clean. It does not hurt Musalia. It does not hurt, but I think within people in government, there are people who it is of no interest to them to be subjected to lifestyle audit. If it was meant to scatter DP Ruto, then it is becoming counterproductive. Because it appears it is always him that is being targeted. Matiang'i did what he did. It's the latest conversation. I can tell you by next week, this conversation of lifestyle audit will have ended. Then we all end up with eggs on our eggs, because we supported a conversation that was going nowhere. So So that's the problem with this disjointed approach in mixing real issues that affect Kenyans with the political succession discussion of 2022.
Okay, goodwill should be there. Fair play.
Yep.
But anyway, that story covered extensively. Let's talk about Raila climbing the mountain just briefly, Kioko, because it seems Raila has gotten the Meru leaders backing for 2022. At least yesterday, he met a couple of business leaders, including the likes of Governor Kiraitu Murungi, who in one way or the other actually vowed to dismantle the political propaganda used against Raila for years in the region that has always voted against him to the last man. From where you sit, with all the demonizing that has happened over the past years, do you think we are proper right now that Raila has found that particular secret of climbing the mountain? Well, what's your take on this?
In my analysis about the person and the political career of the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, he's not a boardroom general. He's a people's people. Raila excels where people are. In the last 3 years since the handshake, and of course with very many intervening variables, you know, COVID and health protocols and stuff like that, Raila has been reduced into a boardroom general. He keeps meeting these people, opinion leaders. He was at SK Macharia's home. He has gone to a church over the weekend in somewhere in Muranga. There were only 20 or 40 people or 100 people max. He's now at Safari Park meeting the elite. That elite has never been Raila's stronghold. Raila's stronghold has been ordinary people. And in Meru, if you go back history a little bit, in 2013, there's an MPA elected on ODM, Mpuri, who looks really and resembles Raila by and large. And so the Meru people are very enlightened, and they would listen to anybody who's brave enough to go there. Even when you look at the BBI conversation and rally, in the whole of Central Province, there was no rally in Kiambu, Muranga, Kirinyaga. The rally of Central Province was taken to Meru, because the people of Meru, Raila has a touch with them. So my conversation and my appeal to the people within the ODM brigade who are posturing Raila for a run in 2022 is that take him to the masses. This boardroom conversations where people are free to speak a lot of good English and say what they mean and say what they do not mean, or say what they do not mean and do something different. We've had it. And then tomorrow morning when somebody goes to the ground, you say, no, we did not endorse Raila. You know. So I think these are games that are being played. You won't get acceptance anywhere by staying in the boardroom. Just like is similar to what DP Ruto is doing, meeting Kamba professionals or calling Kamba elected leaders and some few opinion leaders in Karen, and believing that the Kamba nation has shifted, so that he starts carrying a white banner and declaring victory that we've won Kamba. No. You come to meet people, talk to them. So this conversation of Raila breaking or being able to climb the mountain, it's a harder task, and it needs to go beyond the boardroom. He needs to present himself to the people. Let them hear him. They have respect for him, even if they do not vote him, but they have respect for him. Correct. And that is Raila's strength.
Okay, Oburu, add your voice to this. Perhaps is the approach wrong from where you sit? Because even as he was meeting in this particular boardroom, he sort of appealed to the region's interests. There have been challenges facing tea, coffee, miraa, and knowing very well regional interest at times drives these political narratives. What's your take on this?
Let me begin by saying that approach is neither wrong nor right. But as Kyoko says, Raila is a field marshal. And to see him reduced to a boardroom general speaks a lot. In my assessment, there's a problem. And the problem is one. Raila gained traction from 2007 politically with Kenyan masters from 2007. How did this happen? It happened courtesy of the Pentagon. The Pentagon was these generals around Raila that came around him and were followed by their troops. You know, Kenyan politics is mobilized around our communities. Having said that, where is Raila now? Who is he working with? His chartering a new course, which is unfamiliar, is in unfamiliar territories. This territory is Mount Kenya. He's trying to get his way into Mount Kenya. He does not have a formula, and the person who's taking to Mount Kenya seems to be reluctant. He seems to be actually paying lip service to that agreement, if they have an agreement, because President Uhuru is the leader of Mount Kenya. And if President Uhuru wanted Raila to get the support of the Mount Kenya communities, he should be bold enough to carry Raila's hand and walk him to the mountain and tell the mountain people, this is my choice for 2022. Nothing short of that will make sense for Raila. Hello?
All right. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I still on air?
Yes. Continue, Moses. Are you done?
Okay. No, I'm not done, because having said that, the Mount Kenya, the reality, the political reality as is now in Mount Kenya is that DP Ruto has the support of the masses. Why does DP Ruto have the support of the masses? The answer is the perception that Uhuru Kenyatta abandoned them when he handshook with Raila to pursue a political journey guided by Raila Odinga. Now, this is against the backdrop informed by the previous narrative that was prosecuted by the same Kenyatta and his political team. So now, the question is, how does he wriggle himself out of that? Because I know Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to show Kenyans that he's a true nationalist and he wants to leave power on a pedestal of greatness. I mean, having achieved the status of a nationalist who embraced all Kenyans. But at what point did he embrace all Kenyans? After so much had gone down. So the best thing if I were Uhuru Kenyatta, I would embrace true dialogue. Bring all the Kenyan leaders, and we know who the Kenyan leaders are. There should be Kalonzo Musyoka there. There should be Musalia Mudavadi there. There should be, governors, outgoing governors, and just let us have a dialogue and then agree on the way forward. Therefore, let each and every political leader who aspires to take over from Uhuru in 2022 emerge on his own. But when you try to bring Raila as a project, I'm sure Mount Kenya people will not accept it. So there lies Raila's dilemma. And moving forward, I want to see how he wriggles out of that.
Okay, he definitely has a hard task of climbing the mountain, not just him, but other politicians alike. Speaking of Kioko, just yesterday, we saw Speaker Muturi, Martha Karua, Muhisa Kitui, Kivutha Kibwana sort of meet to discuss coalitions. At least that's what we got from the conference, the press conference they held after. Is there room for a third force, as it seems, or even a fourth force, in case One Kenya Alliance doesn't go the Raila Odinga way? How do you picture this scenario of politics of coalitions?
I think everybody is fattening his cow in order to bring it to the market. Then the highest, the other scripts will be able to pick out which is the best cow to accompany them in the long journey that they are going to. Professor Kibwana, Justin Muturi, Mukisa and Martha represent the best of our history, the very best of our history. People who had a nationalistic approach to politics, who suffered because of not wanting to be seen to be parochial. You remember Professor Kibwana lost his seat by supporting Kibaki as a president. Kitui lost his seat for supporting Kibaki as a president. Martha Karua, I think 2013, she resigned and she did not support the popular wave that was in Jubilee at that particular time. So these people, you can see that they have a very nationalistic view of politics, which is very good. Whether they have traction, whether they have a critical mass behind them, is a very different conversation. There's an upcoming by-election in Makueni. We know what happened in the other by-election in Makueni, vis-a-vis Kibwana and Kalonzo. So you can see there have been by-elections in Central Province, and we are not seeing the traction that is being generated by the presence of Martha Karua or Justin Muturi as Speaker. In Western Kenya, Mukisi is a good guy, has moved the echelons of UN to the highest point any Kenyan has been. But in terms of traction, political traction at the ground, it's not translating. So yes, they are good people. Maybe they need to bid their time. But again, everything in politics is out of the possible. So you cannot outrightly dismiss them. This other political formation of One Kenya Alliance, these are people who, by their own selves, have committed themselves over a period of 10 years or so to enhancing Raila's political agenda. So the moment they back out of Raila, they expose Raila for a person without the numbers. And therefore, they are defining their own niche for negotiations moving forward. It is, when you listen to what Chairman Oburu is saying, that if Central really doesn't if it is becoming hard for Raila to claim Central, is it possible to find an alternative within the One Kenya movement? And we still maintain the NASA vision as was thing. So that's a conversation that is going to go on. I think this particular period is a period of demystifying people. Let's demystify the hustler narrative. Let us demystify Raila so that this grand vision that Raila won, or Raila has these 7 million votes like it is his own only, yet there are other integral partners within NASA that contribute to the 5 million. Let's demystify that. Then there are other people who are coming and saying, this Kenya of today is not the Kenya of 2000. There are young people who have grown and are now about to vote, who need to listen to new ideas that help address the situation. So this period, a lot of formations will come out, but I know by December, January, we'll start crystallizing to nitty-gritty. Right now, we are still at the evolution stage. So let everybody emerge. The known leaders are known. I think people are fighting for space. And the defeat of BBI at the Court of Appeal has really put spanner into works in terms of coalition building. BBI afforded an extra 3 positions. Now we are remaining with 2. The rumbles in Mount Kenya cannot be ignored. So this conversation is going to be tricky. People, egos will need to be massaged. You cannot be outrightly abusive to somebody you think today is not your partner, yet tomorrow they might be your partners. If you look at the conversation that Kirait was talking yesterday with regard to Raila and the demonization of Raila in Central Province, and maybe that is something that needs to be talked about, was so ingrained that boardroom conversation cannot take it away. The one person, let me tell you, the one person who took, clothed, and gave it a bigger life was President Uhuru. In the campaigns of 2013, in the campaigns of 2017. The one person who can unclothe and demonize the feeling that these people have about Raila Amolo Odinga is President Uhuru. Why he has not done that in the last 4 years is the question many people must ask themselves, whether it was deliberate, or it was by default, or it was a game plan to demystify or to play around with Raila Odinga. That's the conversation. Anybody else, because you pick Kiraitu, Kiraitu wants to run again as a governor. Then there is C.S. Munya, who is Uhuru's blue-eyed boy. So where does that place? And these dynamics keep playing in the entirety of Central. So it is not that easy. My prayer is that if Uhuru means well, and I think he means well, it is only he who can unclog that mindset in Central Province. And the earlier he does it, the better for the candidature of Raila. If he delays, then the more hazardous it becomes, even for other people within the One Kenya movement, even for other people within this fourth coalition of Kibwana, Kibwana, Justine, Martha, and Kitui.
Okay. Moses Oburu, Chairman, add your voice to this, of new ideas, of new narratives, of last bullets as well, and all that. Talk to us about the possibilities of coalitions going forward, because at times, trust is usually the breaking factor when it comes to these coalitions, as we've seen in the past. Can this be overlooked as we move closer and closer towards 2022 to sort of reclaim the old voting bloc, even as they look to add new voting blocks? Oburu, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think I'm having network challenges here a bit. I think let us be fair to all political players in this discussion. We need to also bring in the other players, the One Kenya Alliance generals like Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, and Gideon Moi. Let us discuss them what are, for example, Kalonzo's chances in central Kenya? Kalonzo's chances in Luhya land? What are Musalia's chances in central Kenya? And I know that Musalia rides very well in central Kenya. I mean, I've gone there and had people call him Masharia, you know, Musalia Masharia. So I think while we are trying to think about a Raila traction in central Kenya, we must also see the possibility of Kenya having an easy time accepting Musalia Mudavadi's candidature if Uhuru Kenyatta, for example, were to front him. So I don't know. You don't know these things. Could be Uhuru Kenyatta is trying to stir the waters and maybe tell Raila later on that, you know, my brother, we shook hands, we did ABCD, I later on tried to market you among my people, and ikakuwa ngumu, you know, imekuwa kama kuuza nguruwe kwa Waislamu huko Maka, you know. So some of these things are possible. You know, this is Kenya and this is politics. So we could be seeing a possibility of Uhuru trying his best, the way he's doing, and later on say, I mean, let's try now the other person. Let's try Kalonzo Musyoka. Let's try, as Kyoko says, I just began. So let us be fair enough and also talk about limiting ourselves, Raila, and making like campaigning. Let's move the discussion and focus on this so that Kenyans are informed, so that you know Kenya, the viewers can also think. And you know, like Kyoko says, the demographics in 2022 moving forward will be very interesting. Statistics show that between 60 to 80-something% of new voters will be young people, you know, between ages of 18 and 20-something. These are people who don't know the history of liberation and these other things. They only know someone who can talk to them to speak to their problems, speak to their unemployment status, speak to the high cost of living, speak to the lack of fees that they cannot pay their fees at the universities, they cannot get their meals on the table, you know. These are things that we need to be now discussing more, so that how much does Raila stand to solve this? Does he portray that he can solve this? How much does Musalia Mudavadi speak to these issues that are real to the new voters? So these are things that will moving forward, shape the succession matrix and shape how people will vote in the next election.
Okay. Other
than the past history of liberation and what Kyoko talked about, cleanliness. I don't know how people are clean in politics. Thank you.
Okay, that's definitely a proper footnote. Thanks for that, Moses. So as we finalize, Kyoko, let's talk about something apart from politics. I mean, 100 days in office for Chief Justice Martha Koome, and there were a raft of issues, justice delivery in terms of technology being embedded in that justice system. We've talked of corruption within the judicial arm of government, backlog of cases, and she's had a blow-to-blow interview on what she's been able to achieve within the first 100 days in office. I'm sure you've gone through some of these key notes and highlights of that particular interview. Talk to us about her track record so far.
I think one, we need to appreciate her approach into resolving some of the historical challenges that bedevil the judiciary.
Yeah.
At the time that she was being sworn in, there was a backlog of the judges. Of course, President Uhuru appointed some. He left out others on account of the BBI ruling, or so we are told. There's a question of the judiciary fund that till today has not been resolved. There is no legislative agenda that has been brought up into Parliament to enact the judiciary fund so that the judiciary can operate as truly an independent body. There is the underfunding by the executive to the judiciary. So there are challenges, the backlog of cases that come on account of human resource challenges, and therefore fewer judges hearing many cases. The infrastructural challenges, again, which is a budget-related issue in terms of how many courts are available. As it is now, when Mutunga came in with the new constitution, one of his visions was to ensure at least every county has a high court with functionally 5 divisions that are happening.
Yeah. That
takes the number of judges of each divisions, I mean, the total number of judges increasing. Then the clustering of regions so that you have a court of appeal that is easily accessible. You don't have, if you have a matter in Kitui or Voi, you don't have to come to Machakos, or from Voi you don't have to go to Mombasa to listen to the Court of Appeal. So there was a clustering of about 15 or 18 regions to ensure that the Court of Appeal sits there. So there are certain things that needed to happen. The digitalization of the judiciary so that it speeds up hearing of court cases. Basically through introduction of the Hansard mechanism, what is happening in Parliament to be accorded to. That way the judges don't have to do longhand in writing. So there are certain inherent challenges that the Chief Justice inherited. Now, for me, she has a soft power approach, a feminine approach. Nothing bad in it. She's not aggressive, but she seems to be, by appeal, by her appealing to the president, she's able to get certain things moving. In one of the statements in the interview, she said she asked about police officers to be brought in to the judiciary. She was given a complimentary number of 3,000 police staff. So it is her talking, you know. But we know that one of the things about this constitution was the need to institutionalize certain reforms, to go beyond the individual. The Constitution is about building institutions. So she needs to see the judiciary beyond her, to move along and create permanent institutional changes that ensure that whoever becomes Chief Justice or whoever becomes president of this country cannot attempt to interfere with the independence and functionality of the judiciary. Yes. That should be her thing. Yes, she has her own mechanism. She can plead. She's a mother. She has a very soft power. Yeah. Very good. But we need to go beyond that. She needs to create and she has the time. She has 9 years to sit.
Quite so.
She has the time. So she needs to embed institutionalism within the judiciary.
And she's just getting started, according to that particular article in today's Daily. So make sure you're adequately informed, and perhaps how those 34 judges were actually sworn in just after she sent a letter, and was pleasantly surprised that happened right after. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to have you with us. Joseph Kioko joining us in studio, political analyst. You can have a cup of tea after you've really given us your views right here. But Moses Oburu did come through in terms of being a political and governance expert. We appreciate your input right here, and it's good to see old buddies in the SONU organization right here on KTN News.
My close remarks.
Thank you, Jesse.
Okay, allow us to take a short break. We'll be back with more information for you as always, even before we get to usher in the weekend in style right here on Morning Express. Stay with us.